Emma and I have been married for 8 years. We met in college, dated for 3 years, and everything seemed perfect. We both have good jobs. I'm in software development. She's in pharmaceutical sales. No kids yet, but we were planning to start trying next year. At least, that was the plan until everything went to hell. Looking back now, I guess the first red flags started showing up around March. Emma suddenly became obsessed with her appearance. New clothes, expensive haircuts, gym membership she actually used. At first, I was happy for her, you know? She seemed more confident, energetic. But then she started coming home later and later from her client meetings, always with some elaborate excuse about traffic or last-minute emergencies. The weird thing was, she also started taking Ubers everywhere, even though she has a perfectly good company car. When I asked about it, she said she wanted to be able to have a drink with clients without worrying about driving. Made sense at the time, I guess. What really set off alarm bells was when she started getting these mysterious phone calls. She'd step outside or go into another room to answer them, which she never used to do before. When I'd walk in, she'd quickly hang up or switch to talking about work stuff in this fake cheerful voice that just felt wrong. The worst part? She started passwording her phone. After 8 years of marriage, suddenly she needed privacy. Then there was this one night in April when she said she had a dinner meeting with a big client in the city. Around 9 p.m., I got a call from her coworker Jessica asking if Emma was feeling better. Apparently, she called in sick that day. My stomach just dropped. When I tried calling Emma, it went straight to voicemail. Later, she came home around midnight, tipsy and wearing this dress I'd never seen before, claiming her phone had died and the meeting ran late. The look on her face when I mentioned Jessica's call? I'll never forget it. She stammered something about a miscommunication and practically ran to the shower. But I was still trying to convince myself I was being paranoid. I mean, this is Emma we're talking about, the woman who cried at our wedding because her vows were too emotional, who used to leave little love notes in my lunch. How could she be lying to my face like this? Everything came crashing down last week. I was going through our shared credit card statement, something I rarely do since Emma handles the bills, and I noticed something weird. There were multiple charges from the same restaurant, Le Petit Bistro, always around $100 to $150, but only on weekday afternoons. Emma had never mentioned this place, and it's in a part of town nowhere near her usual client meeting spots. So I did something I'm not proud of. I installed one of those phone tracker apps on our shared iPad that she sometimes uses. Look, I know it was wrong, but something in my gut told me I needed to know the truth. The next day, during her supposed lunch meeting with the regional manager, I watched as her location stayed fixed at Le Petit Bistro for 2 hours. Then it moved to a nearby apartment complex and stayed there for another hour. I decided to check her iPad messages. We share an Apple ID, her idea originally, ironically. That's when I found them. Hundreds of messages with a contact saved as Mike Yu. At first, they looked like normal Uber messages, pickup confirmations, arrival times. But as I scrolled up, the messages got more personal, more intimate. Then I saw the pictures they'd been sending each other. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the iPad. The final kick in the gut? A message from her saying Jack's away at his developer conference next week. You can stay over. I'm Jack, and I definitely didn't have any developer conference planned. I completely lost it. My hands were trembling so hard I accidentally smashed Emma's favorite coffee mug, the one I got her on our honeymoon in Hawaii. The sound of it shattering somehow felt appropriate for what was happening to my life. I sat there on our kitchen floor, surrounded by ceramic shards, reading through their messages like a masochist. Turns out Mike Yu was Michael Underwood. Her regular Uber driver turned her lower. They'd been meeting for months, starting with innocent coffee dates while she waited out traffic, escalating to full-blown afternoon sessions in his apartment. The messages were fucking brutal. They joked about me, about my long hours at work, about how I wouldn't know what to do with a real woman. Emma had told him intimate details about our marriage, our sex life, even about the fertility issues we'd been having. She'd even sent him pictures wearing the lingerie I bought her for our anniversary, lingerie she told me was too uncomfortable to wear. But here's the real kicker. While I was sitting there, another message popped up. Mike, missing you already, baby. Last night was incredible. Emma, you're amazing. I've never felt this way before. Jack's just a safety net. You're what I really want. I threw up right there on our expensive kitchen tiles. Then, like the universe wanted to twist the knife even deeper, I got a text from Sarah. Working late tonight, babe. Don't wait up. Love you. The same fucking heart emoji she'd sent to Mike 10 minutes earlier. I called my buddy Steve, who's a lawyer, and he came over immediately. We spent the next few hours documenting everything, taking screenshots, backing up evidence. Then I did something that surprised even me. I texted Mike from Emma's iPad, "Hey, baby, can't wait to see you tonight. Same place?" He responded almost immediately, "Usual spot at 8. I'll bring the wine you like." Game fucking on. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let us know in the comments. Steve helped me plan everything out. We decided to catch them red-handed, but we needed to be smart about it. In my state, adultery can actually impact divorce settlements, so we needed solid proof. Steve brought his paralegal friend who'd document everything, and my brother Tom insisted on coming too, probably to keep me from doing something stupid. At 7:45, we parked across from their spot, this cozy little wine bar that my wife had told me was too pretentious when I suggested it for our anniversary. I watched Emma pull up in her company car. So much for needing Uber, right? She was wearing this tight black dress I'd never seen before. My wedding ring felt like it was burning my finger as I watched her check her makeup in her car mirror. Mike showed up at 8 sharp in his personal car, not his Uber. Watching them kiss in public, right there on the street, it was surreal. Like watching a movie about someone else's life falling apart. Emma was giggling, playing with his hair the way she used to do with mine. Tom had to physically hold me back in my seat. We waited until they were seated inside, all cozy in their regular corner booth. The hostess clearly knew them. Another knife to the gut. Then we put the final part of the plan in motion. I texted Emma from my phone, "Hey babe, surprise. Got out of work early. Where are you? Thought we could grab dinner." Her response came 5 minutes later, "So sorry, honey. Stuck in a late meeting with the team. Probably won't be done until 9 or 10. Rain check?" That's when I walked in. The look on Emma's face when she saw me walk in. I'll never forget it as long as I live. She was mid-laugh at something Mike had said, her hand resting on his arm, wine glass halfway to her lips. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. Mike just looked confused, probably trying to figure out who I was. "Jack!" Emma practically shrieked, jumping away from Mike like he was on fire. "What are you? How did you? This isn't what, Emma? Isn't what it looks like? Because it looks like you're on a date with your Uber driver while telling your husband you're in a meeting." My voice was weirdly calm, even though my heart was trying to punch its way out of my chest. That's when Mike figured it out. "Wait, you're Jack? The husband?" He actually had the audacity to look offended. "Emma, you told me you were separated and just living together until the lease was up." The hits just kept coming. I turned to Emma, who was frantically shoving things into her purse. "Separated? Is that what you've been telling people? That's funny, because this morning you were telling me how much you loved me and asking what I wanted for our anniversary next month." The entire wine bar had gone silent. Steve and his paralegal friend were filming everything from different angles near the entrance. Tom was standing right behind me, probably making sure I didn't do anything stupid. Emma's response? She burst into tears. Not quiet, dignified tears. Full-on ugly crying with mascara running down her face. "I can explain everything. It's not what you think. Mike means nothing to me." Mike's face went from confused to angry real quick. "Nothing? We've been together for 4 months. You said you loved me." And that's when the real shit show began. Emma tried to run. Like, literally tried to push past me and bolt for the door. But she was wearing these ridiculous high heels, another red flag. She used to hate heels, stumbled, and knocked over our entire table. Wine everywhere, glasses shattering, the works. The restaurant manager started heading our way, but Steve intercepted him and explained the situation. Meanwhile, Mike decided to play tough guy. "Listen, man, you clearly weren't taking care of your wife's needs. Emma told me all about how you're always working, how you never make time for her anymore." I laughed. I actually laughed. Never make time? I reduced my hours 6 months ago because SHE asked me to. I've been cooking dinner 4 nights a week, planning date nights she keeps canceling, and trying to fix a marriage she was actively destroying. Tell me, Mike, did she mention any of that while she was crying on your shoulder? Emma was still on the floor, wine soaking into her dress, mascara everywhere. Jack, please, she sobbed. I made a mistake. Mike meant nothing. It was just sex. I was feeling lonely and dash. Just sex? Mike exploded. You told me you loved me. You said Jack was emotionally unavailable, that your marriage was dead. We talked about moving in together. That was news to me. My knees actually buckled, and Tom had to grab my arm to keep me upright. Emma had been planning a future with this guy, while I was at home, thinking we were trying to start a family. Oh, and Emma? I pulled out her iPad. Next time you're planning to destroy someone's life, maybe don't use shared cloud storage. I particularly enjoyed your messages about how I'm just a safety net. Really helped clarify things. The look of horror on her face was almost worth it. Almost. What happened next was like watching a cornered animal. Emma suddenly switched tactics completely, went from sobbing mess to ice queen in seconds. She stood up, smoothed her wine-soaked dress, and looked me dead in the eye. You want to know the truth, Jack? Fine. Yes, I've been sleeping with Mike. Yes, I told him I loved him, because he makes me feel alive. When's the last time you looked at me the way he does? When's the last time you were spontaneous, exciting? We've become this boring suburban couple, and I was suffocating. Mike was nodding along like an idiot until she turned on him too. And you're just as bad, thinking we had some grand romance. You were an escape, nothing more. A fun little adventure to make me feel young again. Did you really think I was going to leave my comfortable life for an Uber driver? The restaurant was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Every single person was watching this train wreck unfold. I saw phones recording. Great. We'd probably end up on social media. But honestly, I was grateful for every witness. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice shaking. You cheated on me because I'm boring and suburban, but you were never going to leave me because I provide a comfortable life? You know what that makes you, Emma? Not just a cheater, but a coward. You wanted the stability of our marriage and the excitement of an affair, and you thought you deserved both. That's when she slapped me. Hard. Right across the face. The sound echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot. Time seemed to freeze after the slap. My cheek was burning, but what hurt more was seeing the pure hatred in Emma's eyes. This woman who'd slept beside me for 8 years, who'd held my hand at my mom's funeral, who'd promised to grow old with me. She looked at me like I was nothing. Tom stepped forward immediately, putting himself between us. That's assault, he said quietly. Steve, you got that on video? Steve nodded, still filming. Crystal clear. Along with her confession about the affair. Emma's face went from rage to fear in an instant. She works with pharmaceutical companies. An assault charge could destroy her career. You wouldn't, she whispered. Jack, please, you wouldn't do that to me. The restaurant manager finally stepped in. I've called the police. Everyone needs to leave. Now. Mike tried to slink away during the chaos, but Tom's buddy was blocking the door. I turned to him. You know what's funny? Emma lied to you too. We've been trying to have a baby for the past 3 months. Were you using protection? Mike's face went white. Emma dropped her purse, spilling its contents across the wine-soaked floor. Among the scattered items was a pregnancy test. Positive. The whole restaurant gasped. I felt like I was going to throw up again. Jack, Emma's voice was barely a whisper. I can explain. I held up my hand. Don't. Just don't. The only thing I want to know is if it's mine. Her silence was all the answer I needed. When Emma showed up at my apartment the night she was served, it was like watching a dam burst. She wasn't just crying. She was practically hyperventilating, clutching her chest like she'd just been told she had hours to live. Jack, she gasped, standing on my doorstep in the same tight black dress she'd worn during one of her clandestine rendezvous with Mike. I need to talk to you, please. Against my better judgment, I let her in. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe some lingering part of me needed to hear what she had to say. She sat down on my couch, hands trembling as she tried to find the words. You're really going through with this? She finally managed. You're divorcing me? I nodded. I didn't make this decision lightly, Emma. But you made it for me the moment you lied to my face, over and over again. Her face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she whispered. I felt invisible, Jack. Like I was just a prop in the perfect little life you were building. And Mike, he made me feel alive again. Alive? I snapped, my voice rising. You call sneaking around behind my back alive? Destroying everything we built together? Emma, I've been working my ass off for us. For the family we were supposed to start. But you threw it all away for some cheap thrill with your Uber driver. She flinched, but her tears stopped. Her voice turned cold. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always the responsible one, the one with the plan. But you've been checked out of this marriage for years, Jack. You can't even see how boring you've become. I stood there, dumbfounded, as she let loose every grievance she'd apparently been harboring for years. I'd expected excuses, apologies, maybe even some groveling. But this was new territory. You think you're the victim here, she spat, standing up now, anger fueling her movements. But I was the one stuck in a marriage where I felt like nothing more than a roommate. I couldn't take it anymore. You felt like a roommate? Then why didn't you talk to me, Emma? Why didn't you tell me how you were feeling before crawling into someone else's bed? She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Finally, she said, I didn't think you'd care. Those 6 words hit me harder than anything else. Not the affair, not the lies, not even the mocking text to Mike. For Emma to believe that I wouldn't care about her unhappiness, that was the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. You're right, I said, my voice hollow. I don't care anymore. Emma's expression flickered with shock, then anger, then something else, something like fear. You're going to regret this, she said, her voice low. You think you're walking away clean, but you're just running. You'll end up alone, Jack. Miserable and alone. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The next few weeks were hell. Emma tried every trick in the book to derail the divorce proceedings. She claimed the prenup was invalid because she'd signed it under duress, a lie. She tried to freeze our joint accounts, which I'd already separated, thanks to Steve's advice. She even tried showing up at my office unannounced, crying in the lobby until security had to escort her out. But the worst was when she showed up at my parents' house. Jack, honey, you need to hear her out, my mother said over the phone. Her voice tinged with the kind of maternal guilt trip that could make you second anything. She's been through so much. She's your wife, after all. No, Mom, I said, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. She was my wife. Now she's just someone who destroyed everything I thought we had. She says she still loves you. My mom pressed. Don't you think that means something? Not when love comes with a knife to the back, I replied, hanging up before I could hear any more. The final confrontation came on the day of the divorce hearing. Emma showed up looking radiant, of course, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, wearing a dress that practically screamed, "Pity me," but her eyes were red, and I knew she'd been crying. As the proceedings began, her lawyer tried to paint her as a remorseful spouse who had made a mistake out of loneliness and insecurity. My lawyer, however, didn't pull any punches. He presented the evidence we'd gathered, the texts, the photos, the financial records proving she'd used joint funds to pay for her little escapades. Emma didn't look at me once during the entire hearing. Not until the judge finalized the divorce and awarded me the majority of our assets, citing her infidelity as the cause. Then, as we left the courtroom, she turned to me one last time. I hope you're happy, she said, her voice shaking. I hope it was all worth it. I met her gaze, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over me. It wasn't about happiness, Emma. It was about respect, for myself, for what we had. And you're right, it was worth it. In the end, I kept the house, the car, and my dignity. Emma moved in with a friend from work, though I heard through the grapevine that Mike had dumped her shortly after our confrontation. Something about her being too much drama. I'd be lying if I said the experience didn't scare me. Trust doesn't come easily anymore, and I still catch myself wondering how I missed the signs, how I let things get so bad. But I've learned something important. Loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself in the process. It doesn't mean accepting less than you deserve. It took me a long time to heal after Emma. Even after the divorce was finalized, her betrayal lingered like a bruise that wouldn't fade. I threw myself into my work, rekindled old hobbies, and tried to rediscover who I was outside of being Emma's husband. I wasn't looking for love. Hell, I wasn't even sure I believed in it anymore. That's when I met her, Sophie. It was at a charity gala of all places. I hadn't planned on attending, but my buddy Steve had guilt-tripped me into buying a ticket to support his wife's cancer research fundraiser. I was standing awkwardly by the buffet table, nursing a whiskey and avoiding small talk, when I heard her laugh. It was light, musical, and completely unguarded. The kind of laugh that makes you stop and look around, hoping to find the source. She was breathtaking. Not in a movie star, unattainable kind of way, but in a way that felt real. Her smile was warm, her eyes sparkling as she chatted with a group of people who were clearly captivated by her every word. But what struck me most wasn't her beauty, it was her presence. She seemed so alive, so comfortable in her own skin. I didn't approach her that night. I couldn't. Part of me was convinced someone like her couldn't possibly notice someone like me, still carrying the baggage of a broken marriage. But fate, or maybe Steve's meddling, had other plans. A few weeks later, I ran into Sophie again at a coffee shop. She was in front of me in line, arguing with the barista about whether they had oat milk. When the poor guy admitted they didn't, she sighed dramatically, then turned and caught me trying to stifle a laugh. "What?" she said, raising an eyebrow but smiling. "You think this is funny?" "A little," I admitted, "but only because I've never seen someone so passionate about oat milk." She rolled her eyes but laughed, and suddenly I wasn't nervous anymore. We ended up sitting at the same table, talking for hours. She was a freelance graphic designer who loved traveling, hated mornings, and had an encyclopedic knowledge of 90s sitcoms. There was something so easy about being around her. No pretense, no games, just her being her and me being me. Sophie was everything I didn't know I needed. She wasn't perfect. She had a terrible habit of leaving half-full coffee cups all over the apartment, and she could be stubborn as hell, but she was real. She loved fiercely and openly, without hesitation or reservation. And she loved me. At first, I couldn't believe it. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for some hidden flaw or secret to come tumbling out. But Sophie wasn't Emma. She didn't hide behind lies or half-truths. She met me with honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. "Jack," she said one night as we lay tangled together on the couch, her head resting on my chest, "I know you've been hurt before, and I know it's hard for you to trust again, but I'm not going anywhere. You're safe with me." Those words hit me harder than I expected. I kissed her then, pouring everything I couldn't say into that moment. I realized I wasn't just falling in love. I already loved her. Completely. 2 years after that coffee shop meeting, I stood in front of Sophie in a sunlit garden, surrounded by friends and family, and promised to spend the rest of my life loving her. She cried during her vows, and so did I. It wasn't a perfect day. Someone's kid spilled juice on Sophie's dress, and my uncle gave an embarrassingly long toast. But it was ours, and it was perfect in its imperfection. Sophie and I built a life together that felt like a second chance. She encouraged me to take risks, to dream bigger than I ever thought possible. With her, I felt like the best version of myself, not because she completed me, but because she inspired me to grow. We traveled the world together, started a business together, and eventually, we became parents together. The first time I held our daughter, I felt a kind of joy I hadn't known was possible. I looked at Sophie, exhausted but radiant, and realized I'd found my way home. Looking back now, I understand why things had to happen the way they did. Losing Emma nearly broke me, but it also forced me to reevaluate what I wanted, what I deserved, and who I wanted to be. Sophie didn't just heal the wounds Emma left behind. She showed me that love isn't about grand gestures or sweeping declarations. It's about the quiet, everyday moments of choosing each other. To anyone out there struggling to move on after a heartbreak, my advice is this: don't let the pain of the past stop you from opening your heart again. Love is a risk, yes, but it's a risk worth taking. Because when you find the right person, the one who sees you, loves you, and chooses you every single day, it's not just love. It's everything.